When he gives you his attention, he gives you all of it. I think maybe what I learned from that was there's things you do because they have another ends to it. There's another reason for you doing it, not because the actual act is that gratifying, but the thing that happens after that is what you're really working towards.
When you look back at things, they do start making sense when you put them all together, but like in the individuality, sometimes they just are things that you do because they're gonna eventually make part of the plan.
If you get to meet Gary, you will experience what it's like to have someone's full attention. And you're like, okay, big deal. No. You don't understand. It is like Lord of the Rings, Eye of Sauron on you. And it's just as terrifying, gratifying, and exciting, all in the same breath. So we were kind of going through some ideas around the stories, how we were using stories. What would you guys think of doing X? I don't remember what it was. And Rob's like, we had an idea. We said, yeah, let's try it. And it was deployed in 90 minutes. And I was like, wow. I'm Jim Thompson, and this is episode 7 of White Space.
So this is probably one of the most intellectual episodes we're going to do. There's going to be a lot of learning, so be ready for getting a masterclass from Jim Thompson. I think the few things that I want to really highlight about Jim before we go into this is, one, he's one of the best, I would say the best teachers that you can have. He has so much knowledge, but he also has the humbleness and modesty to like really come to your level to teach you what he knows. And he's always willing to, at the same time, learn from what you have to offer. Also, he's a great human. He's really good with building relationships outside of work, which I think was something I really admired about you. Obviously, I think you're really smart and have a lot of things to share, and I've learned from you a lot in life about work, but also how to navigate relationships and tackle different situations in life. And there's been a lot of osmosis. I've seen how you've approached meetings and navigated changing the topic and giving feedback, and sometimes bringing the room back to like, what are we focused on? And let's take a step back, focus on the bigger picture. And I think I've taken a lot of things from you, and I don't think I've ever said that to you. But most importantly, Jim had so much impact on Gary's brand. You were there for a little under 2 years, but your impact lasts even today, and we'll dive into that. And the fact that everyone that worked with you through those years that you were there, everyone still talks about all the amazing things you've taught them, mentored them through, or just been there for them through different things. I think it speaks a lot to how you grew up and who you are as a human. And I want to give you a lot of love and respect for that, because I feel like I've learned a lot from you. And there's a lot of people on Team Gary that don't express, but did learn and benefit from your presence around us. And a perfect pivot to that is the first question I always ask on this podcast, which is, who are you as a kid, and why do you think that has brought you to who you are today?
Well, first, thanks for those comments. Those are kind of shocking to hear. I feel like it was a very important, brief window, but very intense and very meaningful in my life. But to hear that there was any kind of lasting impact is really, overwhelming. So
super lasting.
So me as a kid, I think my childhood was kind of broken into 2 segments, because I grew up in a very small town in upstate New York called Dalgeville, New York. But actually the first half wasn't even in Dalgeville. It was the Dalgeville suburbs, which is like the Salisbury, so I basically, for the first 10, 11 years of my life, I just had my brothers and sisters to play with. I really didn't have kids around to do stuff with. So I think I learned how to, have my own fun, be alone, create my own thing. And then when I was about 12, we moved into town, and then it was like a new world for me. It's like, oh my God, I can ride my bike and meet friends and play basketball and play wiffle ball. And it was just kind of like the first part of my childhood was really about kind of learning to be self-sufficient and entertain yourself. And then the second part was really like learning about how to be social and build friendships and take advantage of everything I had in that little town, which was for me was stunning. And so then just growing up in a small town is great in a lot of ways. I had a very tight-knit, small group of friends, Mark, Donnie, Mike, they were my buddies. And I played basketball, but I wasn't a jock, because in my town, there were kids who played football and there was everybody else. And I didn't play football. I played basketball. And there was like, oh yeah, that's kind of a sport. But in my town, it was always secondary to football. And so having that little tight knit group of friends was everything for me. Like that, I relied on that for everything going through school. And so wasn't a nerd, wasn't a jock, was just kind of this little middle group with a couple of close friends, and it was great. It was great growing up in a small town.
That's cool. How many siblings did you have?
3.
3, and then cousins and all. Like, what was the group like? How many people was it?
Yeah, we did not have a lot of extended family around us, so it was really just my mom and dad, and I had 2 older sisters and an older brother. So it was the immediate family was it.
So you were the youngest?
I was, or I am.
Did you ever feel like you were raised by them rather than like pampered by everyone else? Like what was the dynamic?
I'm sure if you ask my brothers and sisters, they'd say I was pampered. But yeah, I think the sister I was closest to, Nancy, I think we had a good brother-sister relationship. But my older brother was probably more like a little bit of a father figure to me, and he passed away a couple months ago. So it was really hard time. But he definitely was a father figure to me growing up, because we were 8 years apart. Yeah, 8 years apart. So I really looked up to him.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think the 2 things that you said, the self-sufficient part and the social part, I think that kind of defines who you are today. I can see it so much. Like even in the first part that I said, like I see that you're really good with problem solving and figuring things out. And also at the same time, you're good with managing relationships. So I think those really built for you over life. What was like your first experience with like making money? Like what was the first time you actually had money that you earned? How did you do that?
I mean, it was right after we moved into town, and a buddy of mine, Mike Lyle, we had a paper route together. So we would go down. God, man, this sounds really old. We would have a paper route, and we'd go pick up the newspapers, and then we'd deliver them across our route. And then on Fridays, you'd collect money, and that route would be, we would pretty much spend all the money that we earned on that Friday, because we would start at the pizzeria, and then we would go to Green Acres, and then we would hit the TCR. And so like by the time we got done with Friday, most of the money we made that week was gone.
Yeah.
But
that's the fun of it, right?
Yeah, not a great financial lesson there.
So what was your first real job where you actually went to work every day?
I mean, it was in high school. I worked at Green Acres there was a drive-in, a burger ice cream place in my town, and I was the ice cream guy. I mean, you came up to the window and I would whip you out a twist cone like that, man. that's where I worked for until I went to college. So I was slinging ice cream, soft serve.
And what was your, like, when you look back now at that experience, like, what do you think what was the part that actually you took away from that?
I did not like that job too much. I knew it was not what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't really want to be in food service. I kind of was jealous of my friends that worked for the DPW or out digging ditches and doing stuff. But it was a great job. I think maybe what I learned from that was there's things you do because they have another ends to it. There's another reason for you doing it, not because the actual act is that gratifying, but the thing that happens after that is what you're really working towards. So I think maybe that was the lesson, is that, hey, everything in life is not going to be rainbows, and it's not going to be
as planned or perfect.
Yeah, as planned. And that when you get used to the fact that, hey, some of life is going to be hard and unenjoyable, but it's got to get done because it's going to open up the things that you really want to do and the things that you really care about. So that's probably what I took away from it.
That's actually so interesting to hear, because I remember when I was talking to Bab in the episode 0, I was talking about how I was an electrical engineer, that I hated being an electrical engineer because I didn't get it. I was always good enough to like make a good engineer, but I didn't enjoy it. And I remember my first job was it was an internship, which I had to do because I needed that internship to graduate from my undergrad as an electrical engineer, was to like look for faults, underground cable fault lines. So like I would literally, in the summer in India, which is really hot, it's 100 degrees, headphones on with a heavy metal detector-ish kind of thing, just walking through the heat in the summer and just like trying to hear for where the sound is the loudest, because what they would do is like there would be an electrical surge from one end of the cable, and because it was broken somewhere, that current would go into the ground and make a loud noise. That's where it would get. That's what grounding is. It get earthed over there. So I would, through the summer, like literally walk on top of the supposed cable to just find where the fault was, so that the next person could dig it and find that. And throughout that whole process, like I never understood why I was doing that. Until date, it's probably one of those things where I'm like, I don't know why I went through that experience. But when you look back at like the micro pieces of it, being at Siemens and doing my engineering made me the data person that I am today. Like I understand data and like analytical thinking and numbers because of that. And then obviously my family business helped me be the creative person, because I was thrown into sales, and a lot of that kind of taught me how to like think creatively and think through, because there was fabric and things like that. So like at that time, I didn't understand why I was doing that. As an engineer, why was I thinking about fabric and stuff like that while I was still enjoying being an entrepreneur? So like when you look back at things, they do start making sense when you put them all together. But like in the individuality, sometimes they just are things that you do because they're going to eventually make part of the plan.
They almost never make sense at the time.
Right?
Like I think the opportunity for you to be going through something right now and say, oh, this is teaching me a great lesson right now. I don't think it works like that.
Yeah.
I think people, they look back and they're like, oh, wait, that was actually pretty important, or that was pretty impactful. But I think you rarely see it when you're going through it.
And it's the reason why I don't believe in 5-year plans, and like why I always tell people like, like be flexible with your plans, because the most disappointment comes when you want your plan to exactly work out, because it's never almost going to work out exactly the way you wanted it to. So thinking about yourself as a smarter human today than like 10 years ago and making a decision that's different from what you wanted 5 years ago, 10 years ago is fine. You know, like I'm wiser today than yesterday, hopefully. Mm-hmm. So if I change my mind from what I wanted to do yesterday to today, it might be the wiser decision. So being okay with that, because you never will get it perfect to the way you want to think about it and deliver on the 5 years plans.
100%. Because the thing that you don't plan for is like, hey, I'm going to be doing this 5 years from now. And what you don't realize is that 5 years from now, you are a slightly different person. So you're thinking of like how I am now and what I'm going to want to do 5 years from now. The problem is you're not going to be that person. You're going to be a different version of that person who's going to want different things and is going to do different things. And that's what people don't plan, is that both those things are in motion at the same time. You're evolving as things are evolving, and predicting that is a fool's errand.
And people and environments around you evolving.
Everything's changing.
We were working together during the whole COVID thing, and like how we had to completely pivot the strategy around that. And we'll get into that a little bit. But like if we had 5-year plans that we were disappointed about, then that would be a big one where we didn't know. And again, there was bigger things to worry about at that time. And we'll get into a little bit of that. But cool, let's get into what was your path into getting to Team Gary? Like what were you doing before the GMG thing happened?
Yeah. So before that, I was at Billboard magazine. And I was there for about 4 or 5 years. Loved that job. Loved the organization.
What were you doing there?
By the time I left, I was running content. So all print, digital, video, all content production. So it was a big job. And so we had new ownership come in, and it was just a really messy exit, and there's a bunch of people let go, and it was look, people lose their jobs all the time, but it was like the first time I'd ever like been asked to, your services are no longer required. And so that was a big eye opener for me. And so, I spent the next, 6 months to a year, thinking about what the next step was, applying for jobs and thinking, oh, do I want to open my own business? Do I want to, so that's kind of the environment I was in. And at that point, one of the positions that came up was a role at Gallery Media. And so,
what was the role? Do you remember what it was?
I think it was like head of content. It was a role similar to what I was doing at Billboard, but somebody that knew SEO, somebody that knew content production.
Totally forgot how much you brought that into the team.
Yeah. So got to meet with Ryan Harwood, great guy, super nice. Had a super interview with him, and I think we had a second or a third. And he's like, "All right, before we can make any kind of offers, you need to meet with Gary." And I was like, "Oh," I said, "That's great." I said, "I'd love to meet Gary." I said, "I know."
You knew of Gary before that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I knew.
You were following his content, all of that, or just knew who he was?
Well, even in that window, that from my exit from Billboard, that, following Gary, like his content and messaging was really helpful and impactful for me during that window. So it was very fortuitous that popped up where Ryan said, "Oh, well, you have to meet with Gary. He has to kind of approve you before we make any offers." I was like, "That's great." So, so I got the appointment to meet with Gary. It's always such a surrealistic experience because, Gary's schedule is literally down to 5-minute increments. Yep. And so I show up and I'm there. I'm like, "Hey, I'm here for my appointment with Gary." And I get into a line. Like there's a line of like 3 people in front of me, like waiting to go in and talk to Gary. I was like, "Oh my God, this is crazy." And so, and I realized like it's a 5-minute meeting. Like, all right, he's going to meet me, look at my resume, and he's going to be like, "Okay, fine, Harwood can hire you."
I can tell you right now, he didn't look at your resume.
No, he did not.
Yep.
He definitely did not look at my resume. And so I get in there, And I meet Gary, and I think you know this, people don't know this, that if you get to meet Gary, you will experience what it's like to have someone's full attention. And you're like, okay, big deal. No. You don't understand. It is like Lord of the Rings, Eye of Sauron on you. And it's just as terrifying and gratifying and exciting, all in the same breath, because when he gives you his attention, he gives you all of it. And so we were supposed to talk for 5 minutes. We ended up talking 20. We really clicked. I had a collecting background. I worked at Beckett Baseball Magazine. He was interested in that. He liked the SEO. He said, tell you what, let's have another meeting. Come back. I want to have another meeting with you. I'm like, okay. And so I came back, and he said, you shouldn't work for Gallery. He said, you shouldn't work for Harwood. You should work for me. I was like, yeah. I said, I never thought of that, but I said, I would love the opportunity to work with you. And I wasn't even really sure exactly what the role was. I just knew I'll take that opportunity. Yes. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm in.
This is 2018, right?
Yeah. 2018, going into 2019. And then it took a couple months of back and forth with Tyler and Lou and sending some emails back and forth. And I remember saying to my brother, I was like, yeah, I don't think the Vayner thing is going to work out. I said, they really haven't. I've been trying to follow up, but there's not much there. And
so you were following up, you were not hearing anything back.
Yeah. Yeah. And every time I would follow up, and I always give this advice to people, like, don't reach out for updates. Only reach out to deliver something of value. So every time I reached out, it was, hey, I saw this article about, a player, Zion, blowing out his Nike. I'm like, if I worked for you, this is what I would do with this. I would take that shoe and that blowout, and I would do commentary on what is the impact on Nike when one of your biggest stars blows out his shoe. How would you respond to that? What would you do with that situation, and talk about that? So like I would send little tidbits of what I would think were something of value, and when updating and asking for an update. But then my brother, God bless him, we're having a drink, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. He's like, well, have they said no? No, they haven't said no. He's like, well, until they say no, it's not a no. Keep going. I'm like, all right, you're right. You're right. No one's told me no, so I'm going to annoy you, and just tell me no, and I'll go away. And followed back up, and I said, yeah, come on back in. And then I got to meet with Andy. That was fantastic. We spent like 3 or 4 hours together. What a fantastic individual. Yeah, and then it kind of started out from there. I was kind of still on a severance from billboard, and they still hadn't kind of figured out, like, oh, we're trying to figure things out. I said, tell you what, look, I got another couple of months off. I said, I'll come work for you for free.
Who did you say this to?
I said it to Gary. I said, hey.
So after Andy, you had another meeting with Gary?
No,
was
not
the
a
same
meeting.
day?
It's probably,
You said it on an email?
Probably in an email or a text. And I said, hey, let's make it easy. I said, I'll come work for you for a couple months for free, and then you see what you think. And if you want to, great. I said, I'll bet on myself. And if it doesn't work out, no hard feelings.
All right. This is where I'm like, a couple of things. One, first of all, that advice is so real. Like, there's so many times people will follow up just for following up versus like, I think that's so smart to like almost give value while asking for an update without asking for an update. It's so smart. And I think that's a really good advice. People should take it. But what I'm really curious about is, what were you thinking you were walking into before, like, we talk about your experience, but like at this point when you've spoken to Andy a little bit, like you've understood the lay of land, you've spoken to Gary, you understand him, and like you obviously knew a lot about him and his brand. What was your perception of what you were walking into before we talk about what you actually walked into?
Man, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I walked in and I don't think hardly anybody knew I was showing up. It took a couple days to get a laptop and, and Andy and I are having a couple meetings and we're just trying to figure it out. So I'm like, look, I said, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and meet every person on the team. So I said, Andy, while we're figuring out what's happening here, what I'd like to do is I'd like to meet with each person individually and just learn about them and find out what they do, how they do it, and how I might be able to help at some point. And so that was a good start just to get comfortable with the team and kind of learn who is who, what they do. And that was a tactic I usually used when I went into a department that was having all kinds of problems. And I'm like, all right, I tell you what we're going to do. Well, so-and-so's doing this. And so I'm like, don't worry about what so-and-so's doing. I'm going to talk to everybody individually. All I need to know is what you think. That's what I need to know. Mm-hmm. And so I just flipped it and used it in reverse and said, like, let me just meet with each person individually and just figure out what's going on. So that's kind of where I started. Yeah.
And then what would you describe as like your experience on the team? Like what did you actually do on the team?
I'm still not sure. Well, it was usually being heavily involved in the content because content development was really what my background was. But I'll tell you what, I remember plain as day, I was sitting with Raghav and May and someone else, and we were kind of going through some ideas around the stories, how we were using stories. And I don't remember what the idea was. I said, hey, why don't we what would you guys think of doing X? I don't remember what it was. And Raghav's like, yeah, okay. And it was done in the next 90 minutes. And I was like, where am I? Like this.
This was one of the early meetings?
Yeah. It was like, we had an idea. We said, yeah, let's try it. And it was deployed in 90 minutes. And I was like, wow, and then it was like, okay, you're not in Kansas anymore. You're going to start thinking. And that's, you and I've talked about this, but getting to work with Gary is comparable to nothing. It's amazing experience. Getting the opportunity to work with Team Gary is what I did not expect. That group of 22-year-olds is the best group of individuals I've ever worked with in my career, bar none. Smartest, sharpest, hardest working, most creative. It was an MBA for me, and I love every one of those individuals in a very special way that I'll never forget.
So I want to thank you on behalf of the team because I know there's a lot of individuals that contribute to that. And I do genuinely believe it is, and again, I have a bias. I've been here for 10 years, but like I do believe it's one of the best teams in the world. And like it's built of great humans, like, and again, there's everyone has a tenure on the team and someone's there for 8 years and someone there's for 8 months and things like that. But like everyone's left some kind of impact. And this is something I spoke about very early on. I think it was the first or second episode. It was like every generation thought they were, actually Andy and I spoke about this. It's like every generation thought they had the best era. But I can tell you that every generation just built on what the next one had built. And when I make that statement, I really I'm giving shout outs to a few individuals, and you're definitely one of them. Is like you've created things, you worked on things, and you built processes and operation efficiencies that even today are being used on the team. And I think a lot of times people that are newer on the team don't even realize how this actually came about. That Instagram story thing you're talking about, we might be still doing it, but like no one knows who came up with that idea. And that's why like I believe that, and to your point of like the 22 great individuals, this is why I started this podcast, because I feel like there's so many good stories of so many great people that we just have to have these conversations and share more about that stuff. And to me, the thing that I adored the most about you was how you took your experience and adapted it to what we needed. I think it was one of the best executions of that I've ever seen. Like, you know, like you had so much knowledge, but you never walked into a room saying, I know best. I never saw you do that. Even with, now that I remember, SEO and operations and analytics, you were so good at all of those three things, but you never walked into a room and made people feel like, listen to me. You were always really good at listening first, which I think is a great trait of a great leader. And I think I learned that from you. You're really good at that. And I believe what we use as on-call schedule now, that a lot of people on Team Gary definitely know. On-call schedule is basically, we're a social media team. Social media runs 24/7, 365, even on weekends. And yes, there's days where we are dark and holidays and things like that. But before you came up with the great suggestion, the way it worked was everyone was on call always, except for like if you had things to do, you would just make sure that the team knew that I'm off the grid this week, I'm unavailable, stuff like that. Versus you came in and you were like, wait, this makes no sense. And I think you had learned that, or you'd seen that in your broadcasting days, and it was the way it worked. Like, I think it was 4 and 3, and I'd like for you to explain it more. But like, you came in and you're like, this should be the reverse. Like, you're literally looking at it from the wrong side. It's like, only few people should always be on call. Everyone else should get a break. They should not have to look at their phone. And it should be 3 or 4 people's responsibility to really be available if anything's needed. And that was such an easy switch, and it changed everything forever. And I feel like that was a good example of how you took your past experience and so simply just impacted Team Gary in such a great way.
It is a simple thing. If you grew up in media, like, so I've been in, newspaper, magazine, digital, TV, media is on call all the time. So you have to have a schedule. Otherwise you can't cover the hours. Mm-hmm. And so joining Team Gary, like, again, people don't know what that's like, being dropped on the Slack, being dropped on the
WhatsApp thread,
the text thread.
Now it's the WhatsApp thread.
Yeah. Being dropped on that thread is, being dropped in a whole new world, and you're trying to follow it. You're trying to pick up, like, what am I supposed to jump in here? Am I supposed to support? Like, where am I supposed to comment here? And then you add a comment and people are like, what are you talking about? Like, why are you commenting on this? This isn't you. And trying to figure that out. And then as you move on, you start to get a feel for it. Like, okay, now I see how we move, because we move so quickly that we're literally talking in real time. We're literally planning, executing, creating action items, developing those action items, adapting, creating more action items, all live in real time. It's all flowing through this stream of consciousness that's going through your text thread. And which is a lot to be on that. And so I'm like, if everyone's responsible to check every message that comes across, it's not going to be as effective as if you can say, hey, you don't have to look at it for the next 8 hours. Yeah. And you can recharge. And then when you come back on it, you've got an idea, like, oh, I know what to do with that. Oh, I got an idea how to fix that. Or I got an idea how to take advantage of that. Versus, I got to check every message that comes through. Just trying to help people apply themselves in a more productive way.
It was a simple switch, but so productive. And I also think that was like the first time where I personally realized that we had so many blind spots. Like, I don't think, at least I will say this for myself, I don't think I would have come up with that concept if it wasn't for you. Someone else on the team might have, but I wouldn't have come up with that. And that's the stuff where I feel like we have ideas, we should have an on-call schedule and things like that. But like, you walking in, we're like, this is easy. Here's how we do it. And just simplifying that was just, I think, the big unlock for me of like, oh, this, you gotta start tapping into information and knowledge in the right way. And like, that's how you build a great team. Cool. So let's talk about your most challenging project on Team Gary.
Well, I'd tell you what, for an older guy joining the team, it was, it was a baptism by fire. And so it was just a challenge to keep up every day with the brains and talent in that room.
On that note, I remember Andy always laughed at how you once did the gif of like the drinking from the fire hose.
That's right, yes.
And I'm going to try plugging that in somewhere here so people can see it.
Yeah,
but
the fire hydrant. Yeah. I mean, the first thing was my first heavy hitter. And so I'm just trying to keep up with the daily, like we're producing, 9, 10, 12 Instagram videos per day and trying to keep up with those, keep them edited, make updates to them, run them through the team, make changes to them. And then Andy's like, okay, we're going to do a heavy hitter. And I'm like, all right, what's a heavy hitter? And it's like, oh, it's where everybody drops everything they're doing and they get together in teams and they create content. I was like, oh, okay. And I said, what about the other stuff that needs to be done right now? Like, just, you're going to drop it for now. I'm like, okay. All right. And so that was amazing. And I listened to the episode with DK and my jaw hit the floor when he said, like, you said, what's your greatest project? It's the same. It's my same favorite, not the most challenging, but my favorite project was the heavy hitter for Gary's text message.
It was a great asset.
It was so much fun. It was the most fun. It was Jason. And
what I'm going to do is I'm going to repost that on Gary's socials.
Please do.
Yeah.
Please do. It is, I still love that. I always try and find it because I watch it. It gets Katie's voiceover. Jason.
Kirk forgot Katie's voiceover.
Yes. Katie's voiceover was the best part. Next to Jason, I brought in like an old 70s suit for Jason to wear because it's all in this 70s vibe. And it kind of looked like Three's Company, and it kind of was like an old-fashioned, dating line. So, call me, and if you're lonely, and it was like my favorite piece of content we created. But the most challenging, back to your question, was once you adapted and you learned, okay, got it, heavy hitter, and now I can got it. But those were incredibly fun and competitive. And you wanted Gary to pick yours, and it was a great learning opportunity. I think probably the hardest, just the most that required the most of you was the all-in challenge, and that's when we raised funds for COVID hunger relief, and it was tremendous idea. Gary said, hey, we're gonna deploy all. It was a heavy hitter. Gary called a heavy hitter for COVID hunger relief. And he said,
lasted 3 months.
Lasted 3 months.
Yeah. So just for context, for people listening for the first time, All In Challenge was a Fanatics initiative, and they had partnered with a bunch of companies to raise funds to feed the hungry during COVID. And Team Gary was a big part of the content machine and also working with a lot of the talent. The whole concept was that a lot of celebrities were going to give away unique experiences that people could bid on, and then one random person would win one of those experiences. And so like we had Gary did one. I know Leonardo DiCaprio did one. I can't remember most of the others, but there were many people who did a different experience where they gave access to their life in a certain way. And we raised $59 million at the end of 10 weeks or something like that. And yeah, the goal was to hit 50, and we got to 59, which is really great. And Gary did a 12-hour talkathon marathon. That's TikTok right. Marathon, which he raised over $2 million and didn't pee once. in 12 hours. Just straight GaryVee-esque execution.
Yep.
And what we were doing in the back end was, and the whole team was in different places, but like there was 3 different parts to how we were functioning. One team was talking to the talent and finding ways to negotiate and get them to like brainstorm what their experience was going to be. And there was one team that was then taking all of that and making content from that. And that involved so many other things, which you can talk about a little bit more. And then there was like one central team, which was like I would call the core team, which was, to my knowledge right now, was just Andy, me, and Alice. I want to give a shout out to Alice because she was really the backbone of that. And what we were doing was making these 2 sides talk. We would like make sure that everyone had different, because even in the talking to the talent piece, there were like so many micro pieces of like sending them a contract and negotiating with them, sending daily updates to what's happening and things like that. Meanwhile, you are handling this craziness of, oh, we just got one video, now let's make 20,000 pieces from it. And this is in the middle of us still getting used to working remotely. I still remember you were in the basement and we used to joke how you just get locked in the basement from morning to evening. Then you had to get a new Wi-Fi to keep up with the uploads that you had to deal with. Yeah. I still remember that.
Yeah.
So walk us through what was going on with the content side, because I know there's a lot to cover even in the talent side, and there was obviously a lot of challenges there, but what was happening on the content side?
I mean, we had a database set up where when a talent committed to offering experience, that the talent side would fill in certain assets and variables, like here's their website, here's their profile, here's what they've committed to providing, here's an approved image that we can use, and now it would slide over to the content team, and I'll be honest with you, it's kind of blurry now. But we had a certain number of assets we had to create for every offer that came in, and then we had to upload those and get them scheduled and posted and approved. And so, the talent team's doing an amazing job. It was hundreds of, professional athletes, actors, significant notables providing these experiences. And then they would put them in the hopper. And I think when I first got like, hey, we're not getting them up. It's stopping. It's getting blocked up there. And I'm like, well, we don't have like a system to get that flowing on to the next step. And so just so many people were essential to that. So a lot of that work I didn't really do. It was just me checking like, oh, okay, like this team is creating those assets. How many you got coming in? How many can you do? When will you get those live? Okay, because once those are live, I need to move them here, and then this guy needs to work on his stuff. So it was really just an operations process,
masterclass.
But it was coming in very fast, and it was very high profile stuff.
The stakes were high.
That Gary was very closely watching it. Michael Rubin closely watching it.
We're doing daily updates.
And so, we're writing big checks and we're trying to deliver on them,
And I think the best part about that was also like, it was intense, and every team probably I keep talking about the 3 teams, like every team probably had a different time during their process where it was like really tight. Like I remember Andy, Alice, and our first 4 days was just figuring out, how is this machine going to work? Like like the way Andy describes it, like Sid and I started a business in 2 days, because it was literally like, okay, we have to do this, but how? And like we had to come, I still remember this Google Doc we worked off, steps. And then we thought we covered everything. And then when we presented it to one side and the other side, you had content workflow things that were like, no, that's missing. We need checkpoints and things like that. And they were like, no, we need contracts. And there was so much that I think that 20-point checklist went to like 60 over the next 10 weeks from like us thinking, oh, we got this on day 2.
Yeah.
And it was such an evolution, but at the same time, it was like everyone was just like in it together. Like it was like, we always talk about how it was really intense. Really, we all probably struggled with it at some point or the other, but we were all just in it together. And it was like the first time I really saw the team spirit like really carry everyone, because it was a tough time for everyone. Yeah. It was like early days of COVID and everyone was kind of uncertain with what's happening in the world. Still remember that meeting you, me, May, Andy had in Gary's office the day we were told to go home early. Yeah. And we were like, yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. You know, this is just like, this is a precautionary measure. Yeah. And then we didn't see each other for a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all in challenge, that happens. And then you very soon left the team. Why did you leave the team?
I had been in having some conversations with a former boss of mine, John Amato, who had purchased an equity position in a publishing group called Modern Luxury, and there was a content leadership role with that group that became available. And I'm like, look, I could. We'd worked together before, and I said, I'm pretty sure I can handle this and help you guys advance the digital side of the business. And I think, to be honest with you, Sid, at that point, I didn't know how much longer I could hold up on Team Gary, because it is an intense ride. And I didn't want to be in a point where I wasn't performing at a high level. I didn't want to go to a point where like, all right, well, I'll just drop it down a couple notches and because that's just not the way we operate. And so I felt like I'd learned so much, hopefully helped provide
impacted a lot.
Hopefully provide some assistance. And then, and called Gary and I said, hey, Gary, I'm thinking I'm probably going to make this move. And he was so supportive, and he's like, no, I 100% support you in where you need to go next and what you need to do. And and I remember saying goodbye to the team, and I couldn't even finish talking. Like,
I remember that
you and Andy had to finish it because I couldn't talk, because that team was so amazing. But yeah, it was. I think you come through things in life and you think they're going to last forever. And what you don't realize is that things are fit for a period of time, and you're meant to learn something. You're meant to accomplish something. You're meant to fail at something. And that window is not there forever. It's there for a period of time. And then when you get to the end of that window, you move on to something else. And my window was, a little under 2 years there. But, what I learned in that time period, I mean, it's ridiculous. I send Gary's texts every once in a while, just giving him examples of, hey, just want you to know I'm doing this because of what you taught me. I'm doing this because of what you said. And like so many things I say, I'm like one of my favorite Gary-isms is like, you don't know anyone's context. Like, no, you think you know your wife's context. You don't. You think you're like, oh, I know why you're doing that. I know why you did this or didn't do this. No, you don't. You have no idea. You have no idea what's going on in someone else's life. And so trying to like think about being kind and supportive and empathetic to people, I always think of that. I'm like, you have no idea what's going on in someone else's life, even the people that are closest to you.
So true.
And, so I use those lessons every day.
So what's been like, so what are you up to now?
So now, so I was at Modern Luxury for a little over 4 years. And last August, I started my own company called Bright Trail Customer Development, which is really a business that helps principals, CEOs, business owners, not just build their personal brand, but build their personal media brand. Because I'm a journalist, so I know how to tell stories about information, and I want to help those principals convey the information, the value, and the expertise they have in a way that builds trust. Because what I learned from Gary is that we grew up in an attention economy, and where I think it's going next is a trust economy. And
especially with AI coming in and so much of like the automation and stuff like that. Like Gary talks about it a lot, like streaming, in real life streaming, like live streaming is going to become really big in 2026 because authenticity and real human connect is going to become more important as we do this.
Yeah. So how effective are you at building trust? Because that's going to be the door you have to walk through for someone to, have a relationship with you, a business relationship with you. So that's really what I'm focused on, is helping these principals, CEOs, owners build a personal media brand built on information and expertise that creates the trust they need to engage with a prospective client and have a real conversation. Because you're right, the trust will be and is the most valuable thing that you can create now.
Yeah, it's only getting more and more valuable as we speak every day.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so on that, what is if there's someone who's listening to this and is like, I want to work on Team Gary, what is the one thing you'll tell them that they should know about working on Team Gary? And two, if someone wants to apply and work on Team Gary, what would you say is the best hack for them to actually get on the team?
To capture Gary's attention, or the team's attention. Again, listening to DK's episode, where he created a rap to capture the attention of the team and Gary. I think you need to provide value. You need to figure out a way to provide value to Gary or the team in a way that's specific to you. So if you are a master baker, then you're going to create the best batch of cupcakes and you're going to send them to Team Gary and you're going to follow up and you're going to explain why Gary needs to be sending cupcakes to all these people to get their attention, to have relationships, So I think it's like understanding what your skill set is and like what you're good at or what you want to be good at and what you want to work on, and trying to package that and like, why is that of value to Team Gary? Why is that of value to Gary? Because people always want to talk about what I want to do. And it's like, I understand you want to do something, but you got to think about what value can you provide that's useful. So in that Star Wars story, you're not Luke Skywalker. You're Yoda, right? You are not the hero, the star of it. That's the client. That's the boss. You are Yoda. You are the one that provides guidance, the one that supports, the one that gives direction, the one that gives a plan. So tell me how you're going to Yoda this, and that might be the best way to capture people's attention.
I love that analogy. Yeah, like there's so many times like you get emails that are like, I'll do anything. And like I think Gary's mentioned this, or I've read this through someone else somewhere, that it's like, now the pressure's on me to figure out what you will do for me. Mm-hmm. So is that really value for me? Versus some of the best applications or conversations, DMs, everything is like, here's what I know. Here's why I think you should do you should have me on the team or engage me in some capacity because this is what I can bring to you. And this is why what I can bring to you is of value to you. Because a lot of times you don't even know why you should do something that you're not already doing. Mm-hmm. Right? If I knew something was valuable, I'll be doing it. Well, I'll have someone doing it for the team. But I'm not doing it most probably because I don't understand the value of doing it. So one of the best things you can do is like explain to me why it's of value and why we should be doing it. And I think that's a great way to like start the conversation. I recently had a application by someone, and this is a Gary tweeted out probably a month ago. It was like live stream producer. He's looking for live stream producers and apply. He put my email out there. There was this one that really stood out to me. He sent an email with a video. The video was made with AI, and it talked about. It really started. The video started with your live stream starts, and your internet connection goes out, or your battery mic dies, and now what do you do? And it immediately flips to, not you don't do anything because I've already switched your mic to the second mic and the camera has changed to the other camera and the guest hasn't even realized that something happened. And that caught my attention right there. And it was like a great explanation of what they bring to the table. One, problem solving. Two, they know how to use AI, which is also value add at this point, like for you to create efficiencies. And three, great storytelling. Suddenly you go from a resume to I want to talk to this person. And I think that was a really very unique approach to how you can show your value and still not make it as if I am the end all be all of like, if you don't hire me, nothing will work. But it was more like, here's how I would solve this problem, the problem that most people face. And it was a really good application. I thought was really stood out for me.
Yeah. Very smart.
Cool. So last thing, because I will always wrap it up with this. There's people here that are listening. Someone's still listening at 56 minutes in this podcast.
Right.
For those 4 people, 10 people, 50 people, what's the one piece of advice you would want to share with them? That's nothing to do with like, they're not looking for advice. They're just, it's something that you really live by. It's like your way of living, or the one thing that you believe that always has helped you live the way you want to live, or the way you live, that can help someone, at least one person that's still listening to this, in their journey in life.
I think probably the one thing I would encourage them to do is to think about the person in your life who's still alive today, who was really essential and critical, helpful to you at a juncture in your life. Somebody that you wouldn't be who you are today without that person supporting or intervening or connecting with you. And let that person know, because they probably don't know they had a huge impact on your life. And you letting them know that can have all kinds of positive repercussions. I think it's one of the most valuable things you can do is let the people know that were really important to you. Let them know long before we get to a wake or a funeral, or, let them know now. Because all kinds of good things happen from that.
Yeah, Gary talks a lot about give roses while people are alive. Don't write that tweet after, do it before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to shout out my friend Prabal. He's a big part of my life that I don't think I'd be here without him. He's not part of Team Gary, so we don't talk about him a lot on these episodes, but he's definitely always in my corner and my best friend. And he's definitely one of those people for me in life.
What did he do for you?
He's just always there. He's every version of being a guiding light, to the person that will question my decisions, to the person that will give me the right advice, to the person that will always check in on me. At the same time, we probably can go 6 months without talking to each other, but also have 5 consecutive days of talking to each other. And we both have a really good sense of when what's needed. And but yeah, for me, he's definitely the person that's the rock in my life that I always lean on when I need someone. Obviously beyond my wife, who is always number one.
Yeah, that's awesome, because that could be just what he needs right now.
I actually met him this weekend, so I think he knows that, but still good conversation.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for being on this. Thank you for, sharing all the knowledge and thoughts and just being here and spending time with me, and for all the impact that you also brought to the brand and to my life in many ways. And we'll keep chatting about those, but thank you for being here.
Sid, I'll just send that back to you, that of the people that I've worked with, your kind, thoughtful, calm, and inquisitive demeanor has surfaced so much good that you're a great role model for people to like think through and listen and ask questions and act. So thank you for making my time on Team Gary so much better. I still have the picture of you, me, and Andy in the lobby that you took. And I was kind of pissed off when you took it, because it was right after I screwed something up. I don't know what it was, but I was not happy. And Andy and I are on the phone, like trying to figure it out. And you take a picture of the three of us. And I was like, God damn it, Sid. And now I look back at that picture and I'm like, that was it. That was exactly what it was like back then. And you could see it. You could be calm enough in the moment to say, like, someday we'll look back at this and laugh.
That's exactly what I said. And I don't think that was the case though, but I see it from your perspective. But like, to me, it was like we had all three of us had been solving something late in the night. I think it was like 9 p.m. or something like that, at least, if not more. And I think that was the first time we had decided that, all right, I think we figured this out. And we had just walked down. We'd taken the elevator, gone down, and we get a text from Gary where it's another thing that we were working on that wasn't right. And I think it was like the moment for us where we just broke down. We were like, I laughed. Because I was like, all right, this is what it is, and it was just like, one day we'll laugh at this moment.
Yes.
So that's why I took that photo, because I knew that at that moment, all of us were like, all right, how do we fix this now?
Yes.
And we'd already come from a exhausting day, long night, like long day, and like was the last thing we needed at that time. And like, it was like the moment I was like, all right, this will be someday we'll laugh at this image. And so it was.
But you could see it in the moment. I couldn't. You could.
One of the things before we hop off, I really wanted you to know, and I wanted to put this on record, is like, really appreciated you for when you left. Our last conversation was you giving me feedback. I asked for it. It wasn't like you came to me and you were like, you suck. It was more like, hey, Jim, like, if I were to ask you something, what would you tell me? And you gave me real honest feedback. And it's very easy for people in that time to like not say something, and just walk away with like, oh, you're awesome and you're great and all of those things. You did a really good job of appreciating me, but at the same time giving me some feedback on like, hey, these are things that you could do differently and this, that. And to me, that's a great leader, like a lot of selfish leaders will want to only say good things in front of you and go complain to HR and your other teammates about you. Meanwhile, the best leaders in the world, in my opinion, are the first to tell you what they would like for you to do better, even though it might seem like they are giving you feedback in that moment and you might want to not receive that. They're the ones that are actually doing the best for you, because it's very easy to not give people feedback. It's very easy to not care about people and move on from that. But like, so I just wanted to give you a real shout out for that and thank you, because that was a really important moment in my life.
Thank you, Sid. I'm glad it was of any use to you, man.
It was.
You were a rock, and you still are.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being on the show.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having
Episode
me.
7 of White Space.